It's 23:53 GMT. Now, Wednesday is World TB or Tuberculosis Day, aimed at highlighting the need to step up efforts to combat the disease. TB is highly contagious, transmitted from person to person through the air. Usually the bacteria multiply in the body, causing tissue and organ damage. It's thought about 1/3 of the world's population carry it, but only a tenth, often those with a weakened immune system, develop the disease.
Some strains have developed a resistance to antibiotics. But a main contributor to the disease's spread is the conditions, particularly the ventilation, where people live. Peter Williams is an architect who founded the Archive Institute that aims to provide better health through better housing. I caught up with him in North London.
It's a problem that is certainly on the increase. It goes underreported and really underexplored, to be honest with you, William. What is very widely known is that there are key issues particularly affecting the most vulnerable. That is, the lower socioeconomic groups have a higher predisposition to developing TB.
But for those listening outside Britain, how do infection rates outside Britain compare with those inside Britain?
Yeah, that's a really great question. You know, just to give you context, we have in London, on average, you're looking at 50 per 100,000 in terms of new cases per year. What we do know is that in parts of northwest London, particularly Brent, the incidence cases are on average are about 114, 115 per 100,000. Now that's quite an alarming number, which rivals countries like Brazil, parts of East and Central Africa, and many parts of Southeast Asia.
Well, that's why we're outside this house in the area of Brent. It looks to many who would pass a typical London house. We're going to go in and you give us some idea, I hope, of what the problems are and why they increase rates of TB infection.
Correct.
Right, well, the first thing I notice, Peter, is slight damp smell. Is that a problem for TB infection?
It's central. One of the core issues, not only here in the UK, but in many countries, is the level to which there is a lack of ventilation, adequate ventilation, and how that exacerbates the risk of contracting TB.
And the lack of ventilation and damp, I've picked it as the first thing I've noticed, but that is one of the main problems.
Absolutely, absolutely.
Right, well, with us here in this house, waiting patiently, is Aisha, who's got some photos with her. Aisha, what do the photos show?
The photographer, as you can see, she is been living in this condition which is not healthy for the person to live in, and she's been suffering very, very badly, so the condition is not useful.
Is it strange for you to have come to Britain from abroad and we're having a discussion here about poor conditions leading to disease? It can't be what you expected.
It's not 100%. I wasn't expecting this situation to live in, because as you can hear or see, England is the most safe and healthy place. That was we was thinking, but what you can see is not acceptable at all to live in.
Peter, we've got incidents of the environmental conditions contributing to maybe a higher infection of TB. Is there also a problem that people who've come from abroad have brought TB with them or have a low immunity, because that's a contributing factor as well?
Yeah, what we have seen and what we do know is there's a close correlation, and the HPA supports that, Health Protection Agency supports that people who travel to countries where there are high incidence cases have a higher or develop a higher predisposition to contracting the disease, not surprisingly. We are seeing a relationship between individuals that perhaps were born with a lower immunity. We've seen that over time into their adulthood, they develop greater susceptibility to developing TB. And that's really closely linked to a myriad of factors. But yes, absolutely, there's a close correlation between non-UK born residents and vulnerabilities to TB.
OK, well, Peter, I've only been in this room 10 minutes, 15 minutes, but I can feel the effect on my breathing right now. Clearly, as a disease that's spread through droplets and air. It's anecdotal, but I can see how that can be a contributing factor. Thank you very much for speaking to us.
Thank you so much, William.
And that was Peter Williams speaking to me earlier in a really very, very damp house, and it actually affected my breathing, as I was saying there. By the time I left, I just was looking for a breath of fresh air.
It's slightly damp, but presumably
a bit more than that.
an understatement.
You can look at Peter Williams's website, the Archive Institute. That's www.archiveinstitute.org. If you want to find out more about his mission, building a healthy environment, building health globally, it says, and find out more about what he's doing to try and improve living conditions for people inside Britain, where, interestingly, TB rates compete, if you want to put it that way, with others in India and elsewhere. Stay with us, you'll be able to hear the news in a minute or two.